Hey, welcome back, and I'm really glad you're here. Today, I'm going to talk about AI because nobody's talking about AI, right? I'm kidding. Everybody's talking about AI, but I want to talk about it or come at it maybe from a little bit of a different angle than most conversations that you maybe or are I don't know probably hearing, especially in the pastor church ministry kind of space. Because here's what I have found: most of the AI conversations are kind of aimed at the wrong target. And, when you aim at the wrong target, you end up kind of solving the wrong problem, although you'll do it with a lot of confidence. But, solving the wrong problem doesn't help you with the actual issue. So, let me kind of start with really the wrong question because you have probably heard it, even if you haven't said it, or maybe you have. What can AI do for ministry? That's the wrong question. What can AI do for ministry? We can answer that question. It can help maybe write sermon outlines. It can maybe draft email newsletters. It can handle team communication loads. It can create content faster than anything has ever created content. It can do all of those things. And for most of those things, there's some benefit in that. It can be genuinely useful on some level, no doubt. I am definitely not here to tell you that AI is bad or that you should be super spiritually suspicious of it. I mean, that would be a waste of your time. And by the way, I use it daily, all the time. But for some very specific things, though, here's what I kind of want you to hear. Most of us, I think, are evaluating what the tool AI can do without asking what the tool, and here it is doing to us. This is true of probably almost every tool that we use. AI is just a tool, right? And what we typically do is say, what can this tool do for us? But we rarely ask, what is this tool doing to us? Those are two very different questions, right? The second one is really the one that most pastors, or I would probably argue most people, haven't really started asking yet. Here's the reality, right? Every tool kind of shapes the way that shapes the people who use the tool. Every tool shapes the people who use it. And this is not a new idea, right? But is also how tools work. And AI is a new tool. I mean, let me give you some quick examples. Think about the calculator. The calculator changed how students solve math problems. However, it also changed whether they really practiced solving them the way they used to, or whether they practiced at all. I mean, give a kid a calculator in third grade, right? And they never have to struggle with arithmetic again on some level, which sounds like a huge win, especially when I think about my experiences with math in elementary, middle, and high school. But the struggle of working through arithmetic was building something well beyond times tables, right? So if we remove that friction from the third grader, we actually might remove some of the formation that was happening around that friction. Okay, let me give you one more example. The chainsaw, right? The chainsaw changed how loggers, my granddad was a logger, so I've learned a little bit about this. A chainsaw, right, changed how loggers work. It also changed how they and corporations that use them think about trees, about time, about physical effort. Right? The tool didn't just stay in its lane either. It migrated into the thinking, into the rhythms of the people and the organizations, the companies that had access to it. So here's the deal. AI is no different, right? AI makes you faster, more capable, it's more embedded in our daily rhythms, right? And it's going to become that way every single day, more and more. But the same dynamic exists. When you migrate a tool into your leadership at scale, it reshapes something. It's forming the way you work, but it's also forming you. It's forming the organization around you, the people around you. So the question is not, whether you should be using it or not. Of course, we should be using it. The question is, how is it shaping you as the user? And are we okay with that? I believe that AI has a very legitimate place in ministry. It absolutely does. And I think pretending otherwise is not wise at all. Pretending otherwise is not wisdom. There are real categories of work where it saves time and carries really no meaningful formation cost to it. Think about like research and background work, trying to work on historical context or commentary summaries, demographic data, right? It can surface these things in minutes, and it used to take hours or days to do those kinds of things. I think we should use it there. There's some great administrative kind of tasks that AI is so beneficial with. Even basic stuff, staff announcements, event descriptions, or writing, even better, rewriting, redrafting, basic policy documents. I mean, the things that kind of need to exist but really don't carry much formational weight, let AI tools handle those things, or at least the first pass of those things. Transcriptions and editing. I mean, every single time I meet with pastors, when we meet digitally, but you know what? I even do this when we meet physically. I record using Otter.ai, whether it's on Zoom or in person through the app. And it is incredible for creating transcripts of those kind of repeatable text conversations, right? Repurposing sermons into blog posts for you, or organizing meeting notes. Those are mechanical tasks. Those aren't really leadership tasks, right? Brainstorming, maybe structural brainstorming stuff, like when you're stuck. AI can generate so many good options for you to refine your ideas, maybe, not to create them from scratch, maybe, but to help you refine. In that creative space, it can create a springboard for you. Routine communication, basic follow-up emails, scheduling language, right? Standard responses to common questions. Those are very low stakes, maybe high volume though, but they're very low stakes. Not many formational things are happening there, okay? Listen, I could give you tons more examples. I don't want to bore you with it. You know those. These are real time savers. And I want you to hear that. Like, I believe they're time saving. You should use AI for that. But they're not leadership. And it's not your leadership there. Now, let's talk about where AI really can cost you as a pastor, as a ministry director, ministry leader, church leader, as a leader of any kind. Because this is, I think, really part of where most AI conversations get skipped. Again, church or not, I think we just skip this. And I think this is the part that may actually matter the most. Because there are some things, and we have known this forever, right? But now we have this new AI space to consider it. There are some things that just cannot be outsourced or should not be outsourced. And it isn't because AI or the old conversation, somebody else, right, can't do them. I mean, AI can do almost everything. But if we outsource everything, right, it might end up costing us something. In fact, I argue it absolutely will. And in some cases with AI, it can produce a reasonable version of a lot of things that you could or should be doing. But because you are outsourcing them, it removes the process. And often the process is what makes you the leader. There's formation in that process. So let's talk about one of the most common examples, sermons. Now, if you aren't a teaching pastor, preaching pastor, if you're not working in a space where you're communicating, content on a regular basis, you can think about this with me, but there are versions of this for your space too, right? So we'll focus on sermons for a minute. Like the struggle of a sermon, right? The struggle of putting it together, that is not something that we should try to just make more efficient. And here's why. The struggle is formation, like wrestling with text until it kind of breaks you open and breaks open itself. Sitting with a passage and not knowing exactly what you need to say about it yet, right? And staying with it until something comes through. That is not a problem to be solved or an issue that should be more efficient. In fact, wrestling with the text is the point, right? So if AI is drafting your sermons, including the wrestling match for you, if it's wrestling for you in seconds, right, not minutes, hours, well, the person that is being shaped by the text is not you anymore. And so therefore, the person who is not being shaped by the text really has no business preaching it. That's at least what I believe. And I know that is a very strong thing to say, but I believe that's true. We talk about internalization, right, of the text, internalizing your content, having a burden for what you're going to teach. Well, if AI is the one who developed the burden, well, just let AI teach it. It's really hard for you to develop a burden over something that you didn't wrestle with. Now, Can you use AI in creating elements of sermons or helping you think, is a better way to say it, about content? Absolutely. Should it be writing it? Absolutely not. Okay, how about vision, for instance? Vision, I love this. Vision is not a content type. Okay, it is not a paragraph that you refine with some better prompts, right? Vision emerges from spiritual attentiveness, from personal history, from organizational, communal understanding through prayer. AI has none of those inputs, right? It has patterns from the internet, algorithms, right? That is not vision. That's just noise with maybe better grammar. So you can't outsource vision to AI. Hard conversations, that's a third category. Like when someone on your team needs to have a corrective conversation or be confronted or, occasionally maybe be released, you, you personally as a leader have to be fully present in that. And if you kind of are using AI to pre-script that conversation or the words or the email that you're going to send, what you're actually doing is managing optics instead of leading people. And you know what? The people around you are going to feel that. So don't outsource that. Another one, difficult personal communications. This is similar to the previous one, but like a message. I mean, this sounds so basic, but a message to like a grieving family, for instance, the note to a discouraged volunteer or staff member, the email to a donor who is maybe you sense is kind of quietly pulling back, right? Those things require your voice, your heart. And AI can approximate warmth, but it can't generate it. I mean, people who are hurting, they're going to feel the difference. Let me just give you one more. How about real leadership judgment? Like every time you hand high stakes tasks or decisions to an AI agent, you get slightly worse at that task. A skill that isn't practiced isn't ultimately retained. We know this, right? Judgment not exercised doesn't develop in you. So leaders who are constantly outsourcing the hardest work of leadership eventually lose the capacity to lead without help. And by the time you notice that, the gap has been probably growing for too long and it might have become a canyon, right? Not just a small gap. So what do you do with this, right? What do you do with this? Well, I mean, the basic thing, the obvious thing, right, was don't outsource some things, right? But let me kind of just go a little bit more practical than that, okay? I think there's some things that you can monitor, and maybe not as a rule, but maybe like a best practice of attention. So here's one: monitor your pace. Monitor your pace. Is AI speeding you up in ways that are quietly disconnecting you from the people that you lead? Right? Ministry requires a kind of a slow presence in some places where faster is definitely not better. So pace. I think about this in my work. I mean, I work in ministry. I preach, 35 times a year. I work with pastors all around the country, really all around the world. I can and do use AI for some of the work that I do. But I know that my content creation, for instance, this podcast, the YouTube channel, the blog, courses that I write and create and record, when I offer leadership labs, or when I just do personal one-on-one coaching or consulting, right? AI can help in some ways, but it ultimately can never replace me or my voice, and it should not do that. I don't need to speed up that work. I need to stay fully in that work, which really brings us to the next thing. It's just presence, Like, are you still doing the deep, slow work of being a pastor? I think about that for me a lot, coaching and consulting with pastors, right? It isn't meant to be efficient. I'm not, you don't want to hire me because I'm the most efficient coach, right? You want to hire me or somebody else because they are the best coach. They're the best, most strategic consultant, which means your presence really matters. And this is true of you as a leader, right? Like, are you using efficiency tools or to justify staying, in this production mode? Or do you need to step back into formation mode? Those are different modes, right? And the best pastors that I know are ruthlessly protective of staying in formation. and not getting efficient for the sake of efficiency. I mean, discernment is a great example of this too, right? Like, real discernment requires friction. It requires you sitting with hard decisions, wrestling with maybe ambiguity, praying through uncertainty. That is how discernment sharpens. And you know what AI does? It can remove that friction. And that's not valuable. Removed friction in places that needs it for discernment doesn't gain you or the church anything. That's a loss, and it actually compounds kind of quietly but quickly. Let me give you one more. Spiritual attentiveness. Like, if AI is replacing any sort of practice of prayer or reflection or listening in your leadership, that has to stop now. It just has to stop. That's not a productivity place, right? That's a formation space. Here's kind of the move I'd love for you to make this week. And I think this is something you should do now, like today. I'd like for you to pick one thing that you are currently using AI for that is very close to core leadership for you. And I just would love for you to ask, and that one thing, right? And honestly ask this: is this tool serving my ministry, or is it a substitution for my ministry? Is it serving ministry or substituting ministry? And if you can't answer that really clearly, well, option two, option B, substitution is your answer probably. Like, a pastoral authority is not built on productivity, right? It is built on presence, discernment, and as much as I love progress, the slower work of formation. And you can't outsource that work. You can't outsource the work that builds those things. And if you do, you may become faster, but you're going to be hollower at the same time. And your output may increase, but your depth and your formation is going to decrease. There's just no two ways about that. And you know what I think will happen? I think your people will eventually feel the difference, even if they cannot name it. And let's be honest, you can feel that difference. You can see an Instagram post and know if AI wrote it. You can listen to a sermon that somebody else has delivered and know if all of those repeated after another catchy phrases were written by them or not. Did they come from their soul or from the collective amalgam of everyone's, right? I mean, every tool, as I said earlier, shapes the people who use it. The only question is whether you are paying attention to what it is shaping in you, and whether you are leading that process or allowing the process to lead you. Hey, thanks for joining us today for this conversation. And you know what? I'll see you next time.